Welcome to this episode of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast, where we look forward to shaving every day. Welcome to episode 103 of the podcast. My name is Rick DeWeese. I'll be your host today. So this week, I had an interesting conversation about, the undesired attention. We'll talk about that. It's amazing what you actually find out when you talk to people. And I like talking to people. I just like talking. We throw in a shave of the day. I'm starting up the fall session of the scouting program, and so talk a little bit about that. Another shave of the day, we go with a classic Gillette blade. I bought a pouch for my kind of like a holster. I was going to make one, but then I found this one for a decent price, and so I've got a pouch for my recorder. I'll tell you about that. Also works on radios. Saturday's shave of the day, I go back to the Shavette. But this is a different Shavette, so maybe it won't be quite so bad. Maybe it won't be the ex-wife's lawyer taking every drop of blood it can find in my face. But then again, maybe not. All right, we talk about Monday's shave of the day with a little bit of Sunday thrown in. I may be, or actually my son may be sparking some interest. So that's a good thing in the wet shaving realm of things. It's always good. And then, it was just kind of a retro kind of day. And so, we'll talk about it. Anyhow, that's the show this week. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you've had a great week. There's been a lot going on for me anyhow. And, you just kind of keep plugging away, don't we? Anyhow, I hope your week has been as good as mine, and let's get on with this show. So I got an email from Joel. Now, you're going to hear a lot about Joel because Joel sent me a package of odds and ends and assortments that, he thought were odds and ends. I thought that they were absolute fantastic treasures. It just blew me away. So, Joel, thank you again. I'll be talking about that stuff off and on for the coming weeks, and it was a great surprise and a great present. Anyhow, he sent me an email after all of this and said, I went to the local grocery store yesterday. It was one of the larger ones that has more stuff. I checked out the shaving aisle and was surprised to see Cremo shaving cream, Vanderhagen Glycerin shaving soap, costs $1.67. Scented Luxury shaving soap costs $3.88. Blades, razors, and shaving set. Pal blades, Clubman, Styptic pencils, Hill Country double-edged blades. Hill Country is one of the house brands of the store, but more and more of their products are getting the house brand label. I purchased the Vanderhagen Glycerin shaving soap and the Luxury shaving soap. I noticed that the company is in Liberty Hill, Texas, just northwest of Austin. I called the company and asked where the soap was made. The lady said that it was made right there at the factory at Liberty Hill. Any experience with their soaps? Okay, so on the Glycerin shaving soap, I have tried that. I have not tried the Luxury shaving soap. Now, for me, the glycerin was actually pretty nice. It's a glycerin soap, okay, and is very good from a slickness standpoint. As long as you load the brush well, you can get really good cushioning on it. And people kind of poo-poo the lower ends, the Williams and the Vanderhagen and stuff like that. I never have. I've always found it to be very good stuff. Now the Cremo is exceptionally good when you first get it. But if you let it sit around for a while, like I did, I let a tube of that stuff sit for about 6 months, and when I used it again, the smell was off. It didn't perform quite right. It's I understand that. I mean, my gosh, this stuff's sitting around for 6 months. Okay, so it's not like a puck of soap. But yeah, the glycerin soap, it works very, very well. I've never had any problems with the Vanderhagen. In fact, I have a puck somewhere around here, but I also have a couple of pucks of Williams. And the glycerin shave soap, the Vanderhagen, does what I always did with Williams. Williams worked okay, but it worked so much better with a couple of drops of glycerin. So, the Vanderhagen glycerin soap, well, kind of answers that question. It's really not a bad soap at all. He goes on. He said, I'm finishing up with the can of Barbasol goo. Good. Finish that up quickly and move on. He says, when you shake that can, you can't feel anything. There may be only one or two more uses in it. After that, I'll learn the salsa bowl lathering method. By the way, I purchased 2 salsa bowls at the grocery store as well. They were $1 each. You once said that you use sandpaper to roughen up the inside. Wouldn't this smooth it up instead? Would a wire brush or an electric drill or Dremel tool work as well? How rough does one need to make it? I'll continue with the cartridge razor until I master the lathering technique. If it really increases the number of usages of the cartridge, maybe I can get a lot longer out of each cartridge. Don't know. Okay, so what I do with the salsa bowls. Now, the salsa bowls that I have, they're Walmart. They're $1.50, so if you could find them for $1, you're making a great deal. That's good stuff there. So what I do is I roughen them up because if you look at the inside of the salsa bowl, there's almost like a smooth finish on it. It's injected plastic, so it's a very smooth finish. So what I do with mine is I actually take either 60 or 80 grit, preferably 60 grit or 50 grit sandpaper, and it's kind of interesting how I do this. I've got a tennis ball, and it's a big tennis ball that I bought at a pet store one time. It's for dogs, but it's big. It's bigger than a softball. And so I take this tennis ball, take a little bit of the air out of it, cut a piece of sandpaper and stick it on there, and then shove it in the salsa bowl and just kind of swirl it around for about 5 minutes while I'm just kind of not paying much attention. But you can do it by hand too. I mean, there's nothing unique about the technique. I just thought it was interesting that I was able to use a tennis ball to do it. So the main thing is that what you're trying to do is you're trying to roughen up the surface. Now, you don't have to do that, but what I've found is that the salsa bowl has a tendency to, not give quite as much of a lathering performance as it would if you roughen up that surface. I also thought at one time of using a Dremel tool and cutting grooves in the thing, but I just figured, okay, a piece of sandpaper would probably be the easiest way to do it. A wire brush might also do it. But again, I've just used the sandpaper. I've done it on about 5 or 6 bowls and never had a problem with them. One thing to watch out for is that right after you do it, the first couple of lathers will be just voluminous, because it's going to put a lot of air in until your brush knocks down the edges of where the sandpaper cut. So that's something to look out for. But yeah, let me hear back from you and let me know how the lathering goes, because it's good stuff. And besides, we're always here to help. And like I've always said, everybody in the world deserves a decent lather in the morning or whenever they shave. I mean, that's just one of the things. And so don't be afraid to use a lot of water. Not a lot of water, but more water than maybe you would normally think about. I use, I use a boar brush typically, and I soak the brush for about 5-10 minutes while I'm taking a shower. Take the shower because it'll allow the brush to soften up. It'll also put some moisture in the brush. It'll also help hydrate your stubble, which makes it easier to cut, which will lessen the chances of irritation. So it also makes things just last longer and work better. So do that. Then what I do is I will take the puck. I do not put the puck in the bowl, or if I do, I'll put it in a separate bowl. My lathering bowl is just a lathering bowl. It doesn't have a puck of soap in it. So what I'll do is I'll take the brush and I'll stick it in there and I'll start swirling it around. And I use, I'm not smashing the brush completely all the way to the handle, but I am probably putting enough pressure on it so that it is, probably splayed out maybe 1/4 to 1/3 of the way in, I'm probably putting that much pressure on it. If you push it all the way in, you're going to break your brush. But, I'm putting some decent pressure on it. It's, like I said, a quarter to a third of the brush as far as, splaying or distance or whatever. It's difficult to describe this audibly. But don't be afraid of putting some pressure on it, because once you've softened up the brush, the bristles in your brush become very, very flexible. Now, if you do it dry, your bristles will not be as flexible. Although some people do it dry, and on the other side of things is that your brush being dry or drier will actually pick up a little bit more soap. So personally, I prefer soaking the brush, and it's because it's going to make the brush last a lot longer. Because dry bristles, when they bend, they break, and so you'll break out bristles in your brush, which is not good. Then you'll have one of the old raggedy, thin things like they did back in the 50s, the kind that you find in the antique store now. And you don't want that. You want a nice, good, big brush. Okay, so lather it up, and I usually use between a teaspoon and 2 teaspoons of water in the lather bowl once I've, gotten the brush loaded up. So give that a try, and the lather should be not too awful airy. It shouldn't be really bubbly, but at the same time, it shouldn't look like paste. So you want something kind of in between. And give it a go. Send us some pictures, and heck, we'll talk about it. Maybe we'll help some other people out. So Joel, thank you very much once again, because that was unexpected and it's greatly appreciated. And thank you very much for the email. Just had an interesting conversation that, kind of put a different light on things. Hadn't thought about it, but it's true. So, you have 2 kids in a family. One of the kids gets older and goes off to school. All of a sudden, all the attention is on the younger sibling. Dun, dun, dun! Make it stop! Interesting conversation, interesting take. Hadn't thought about it. But boy, it's probably true. I know I'm probably guilty of it myself. One of those things where you think, okay, this is the new normal. It's not just the new normal for you, it's the new normal for everybody, and sometimes that new normal can cause things that are, unanticipated, unexpected. And if you're the younger sibling getting all the attention that you may not want, undesired. So today I went the Gillette route. Went with a Gillette Flair Tip. Gillette Flair Tip and Gillette Silver Blue Blade. Lathered up with the Samog brush and the salsa bowl using Wickham Soap Company Spice Trade. Because I have some and I enjoy the scent. It's the old spice scent. It's really, really nice and lathers well. Good stuff. But then I finished up with, first off, I cleaned up a little bit with a straight razor, and the thing that was interesting is that even with the Gillette Blue, I don't know what it is. My shaves are not quite close enough to my liking anymore with a double-edged or a sometimes single-edged. So, interesting. Now with the straight. Yeah, I can get them nice and close, and everything's good, and ta-da! But it's just curious. It's almost like your expectations evolve as you become better and more masterful. It's very similar to when you pick up a hobby, or you're a young kid, and, like back in the day when you would build a model car. I don't know if kids do that anymore. I know mine didn't. Nobody built plastic model cars anymore and painted them. And I remember spending time just meticulously getting into the detail of building a beautiful little model car. Yeah, painting up the engine and, getting all the colors right and just, good stuff. They don't do that anymore. Interesting. Anyhow, as you get better, your talents evolve, but so do your expectations. All of a sudden, you want the stickers and the labeling that you put on your model car or the smoothness of your shave to be, well, perfect. It's just one of those things, it comes with experience, I guess. So, I had to touch up with the straight razor in a couple of places. Not a big deal. Now, I finished off with an aftershave splash that I did a review on, probably, back in the early days, and that is the, can't remember if it's the CVS brand or the Dollar General Store brand or whatever, but it is the generic knockoff of Old Spice. And you can get the bottles of them, like I said, at a Fred's or a Dollar General or, a dollar store, a General or CVS or something like that. They're not very expensive. I think CVS is the most expensive. But the thing that is interesting about them is they are an alcohol-based, it is an alcohol-based aftershave, and it does have an Old Spice type scent. However, it has absolutely, unequivocally no staying power. You pretty much smell it initially when you throw it on, and then poof, it's gone. It's disappeared. It's vaporized. It's it's like that. So it's good for a quick splash and a little bit of fragrance. And the fragrance just basically is gone after that, or at least so diminished that it's very, very difficult even to catch a whiff of it. However, it does do a pretty decent job of giving the kind of the alcohol splash smoothness and the alcohol splash smoothness and feel. So all good stuff. I also did something that I haven't done in a while. I actually took a picture of my shave of the day equipment and put it on on Facebook and Twitter, and I haven't done that in a while. I'm getting slack in my old age. I don't know. Anyhow, it's just one of those things. One thing that is interesting is we're trying to organize a meetup, and we're trying to organize a meetup in November down in Augusta, Georgia, and for all of the Atlanta area and Georgia and South Carolina wet shavers, it's a good local meetup, and got a bunch of people that I believe are coming, or at least enough to make it interesting. And so I'll give you more information as time goes on. But so we'll do a meetup. We'll go meet some people, talk, and have a good time. Anyhow, that was the shave of the day, start of the morning. Yep, looking forward to it. Well, we're about ready to start the fall session, if you will, of Boy Scouts. And hopefully it will be a good year. We've grown a little bit as a troop, and that's a good thing. And I've got, 4 boys, I think, that are either on the road to becoming Eagles and working on their final merit badges, and or real close. So, that's my next kind of push, I guess, is to get those 4 boys where they need to be so that they can complete their Eagle projects and make Eagle. It's an interesting thing, in past jobs, I have been responsible for hiring people. I have interacted with other folks that are responsible for hiring. And one thing that is a common thread is that being an Eagle carries with it some advantage. And it's interesting, and it's curious. Everybody knows what an Eagle Scout is, and mainly because of the absolutely excellent marketing of the Boy Scouts of America. There are other programs out there, and you would probably have to say that something is equivalent to an Eagle Scout, because these other programs just are not as well known. However, there are other programs out there, and one of the things that strikes me as to the importance is that in doing the Eagle Project, the young man has a taste of what it is to organize a project, the meticulous nature of the project, the way to go about planning, the way to go about doing, and so that's a good thing. And that experience, like I was saying last week, the kids, teenagers don't have the ability really anymore, because we've kind of taken it out of the society. They don't have the ability to get jobs. And so you have to look for other avenues for them to gain experience. And quite honestly, one of the scouting programs is actually a pretty good way to gain that experience. They have the experience to talk to an adult in a bit of an authoritarian position, I guess, about things that they're doing and things that they're trying to achieve. Very similar to giving a report to a boss. They have the practice, if you will, for oral boards, because that's exactly what their board of reviews are. And so they have a bit of a leg up. They have some experience based in reality. And so from that aspect, any scouting program is a good thing. Now, sometimes what ends up happening is they go through the younger years, and then they don't continue through with the Boy Scouting stuff. I understand that. Even the younger years is good, because it teaches them the Boy Scout or the Cub Scout motto of do your best. And I must admit, I still, to this day, think about the Cub Scout motto almost on a daily basis as I, go to work and do what I do, and I do in fact try to do my best. It's become personal, so it's a good thing to expose young men to those kind of ideals early on. And again, it doesn't matter. I happen to be affiliated with the Boy Scouts, but it doesn't matter which organization you are in. Even if you are a Baden-Powell Scout, which is a very loose organization that doesn't really have the, any of the big affiliations or anything like that, or Trail Life, which is picking up, picked up a lot of members and is been going for a couple of years now and doing very well, at least in this area. But there are others. The Royal Rangers are some more church based and organized groups. So it's a good thing, because young men need the experience. They need the ability to have those experiences, and to have, to a certain extent, that little bit of extra guidance in certain areas. And at the end of the day, we're trying to, at least I am, trying to teach young men how to, be better citizens. To, if you think about it, and I've said this on many occasions, it befuddles me why there are organizations that are dedicated to, not getting rid of, but at least changing drastically the Boy Scouts of America, because the Boy Scouts train young men how to be able to do first aid. how to be able to sanitize water, how to be able to act and think in certain emergency situations. You know, and when you think of things like hurricanes or thunderstorms or, you know, things like that, do you not want people that have an understanding of these things? Or would you rather wait on someone from the government knocking on your door and saying, we're from the government and we're here to help? Which, as Ronald Reagan once said, is rather laughable. Yeah, it is an interesting thing. But anyhow, I'm looking forward to the start of the season. I do enjoy the scouting program. We sat down the other day, me and one of my assistant scoutmasters, and went through the merit badges that were attained and achieved, and on the records, and you know where we stood and what needed to be finished up, and so we've got 4 or 5 that we need to work on in the troop to get these boys eagle ready, and we'll do that to the best of our ability and get them the leg up that, well, they deserve. Well, they'll have to earn it, but if they earn it, yeah, they deserve it. All right, so another day, another shave. And that's what's so nice about it, because it's something to look forward to, really. It's not just the same old humdrum of knocking your whiskers off. It's actually enjoyable. It's actually pleasant. It's actually something to look forward to. Well, like I do. Anyhow, the shave of the day, I just figured I'd mix it up a little bit and reached in for the Katie's Bubbles, and the scent that I got was Le Piment de Vie, LPV, Le Piment de Vie, or the Spice of Life is the literal translation. And I've got to say, okay, when I first got it, it was like, okay. The scent really has kind of grown on me. It's kind of weird that it did that, but I kept with it. I didn't just give up on it. And sometimes there's a lesson in that. Sometimes you shouldn't just, try something once or twice and go, nope, not for me, done. Sometimes it pays to keep it around a little bit and see what you think after a little bit of time. So that's just a thought. Now, the razor that I'm using is a Gillette Flair Tip from I believe the one that I've got is from the early 60s. And it's just a nice, silver, I guess it's chrome, really. Well, maybe not chrome, but nickel. It's probably nickel plated. But a nice silver razor. It's got good knurling on it. It's really a pretty razor. So if you ever run across them, it's something to look for. The old Gillettes, the black handle flare tips, the flare tips. You've got the red tips and the blue tips. They're all around from the same era, and they're all slight variations on each other. The silver, the Super Speed, the 1940s Super Speed was the one that kind of set the stage, and then it's like they used a similar head design, not quite the same, but similar head design, to create the flare tips. Now, the interesting thing about the flare tips is that the silver flare tip, or the black handle, is kind of the middle ground, if you will. And if you were to kind of compare it, and I've done this before, kind of compare it to an adjustable, a Fat Boy, for example, that middle ground would be like a 4 or maybe a 5 on the adjustability knob of a Fat Boy or a Slim Adjustable or something like that. Very much in middle ground. Okay. Now there's also a red tip, and the interesting thing about the red tips is that they were also made out of a heavier metal. And the red paint, for whatever reason, on just about every red tip I've ever seen, unless it's been repainted, has been worn badly. It's just a kind of a curiosity more than anything else. It flakes. kind of chips off or falls off or whatever. But, I've always seen them, and they've always been, worn in the paint department. Now, you can repaint them and do a pretty good job and end up with a very nice red tip razor. But their claim to fame on the red tips is that they are slightly more aggressive. They're like a notch above the silver. So if you see red, I guess if you see red, you can think blood or whatever and think aggressiveness, and, it's a slightly more aggressive razor. When I first got one, it was like, ooh, I don't know, this thing, it's supposed to be more aggressive. Well, how much is more? Is it going to be like a Fat Boy or an adjustable opened all the way up to maximize blade exposure so that it's, you're basically, just about have the blade itself up against your face with no protection whatsoever? No, it's nothing like that. Although I did think that until I actually put razor to face and went, oh, this is it? So it's not that bad. It's like going up one notch. Now, for certain people, that is what they need, and it will be better. Now, the other variation on this theme is the blue tip. And the blue tip is going the other direction. It is slightly milder. It is slightly less aggressive than the silver. And so it was used, quite honestly, in some venues as a ladies' razor. And the thing, again, that's interesting is the handle on the thing is not made out of a heavyweight material. It is made out of aluminum. And the blue tip, every blue tip that I've seen, or at least the majority of them that I've seen, the blue paint that they used on the handle is almost pristine. It's really kind of strange, and maybe it's just me, maybe it's just the ones that I've run into. But I don't know if it adhered better or if the preparation was better or what, but it was, the blue paint is always in very, very good condition. And so the razors just naturally look, well, to be newer than the red tips. So that's kind of curious. Now, the other variation came along a little bit later was the black handle. Now, it still had the same silver flare tip, but it had a black handle, and it was painted black or anodized or something, but it was a black handle. They hadn't gone into plastics yet, but it was kind of an interesting color combination. Now, the other thing that's interesting is in between the two of those, like the 1940s and the 50s and 60s flare tips, there was another variation which I have kind of kept my eye out for, but never run across one that I really, really wanted and that I could get at a decent price. And that was a 40 super speed with a black tip. The opening of the silo doors, instead of having a little steel plastic tip, it was, or brass, or whatever it is, plated, but instead of having a metal tip, it was a black, and I'm pretty sure it was plastic. And if I'm not mistaken, it was one of the first uses for plastic in Gillette razors. But I could be mistaken. But anyhow, it's interesting, when you go out and you look at the flare tips and the super speeds and those razors of that era, all of the different variations on essentially the same theme. It's kind of like the difference between a Chevy and a GMC. Aside from the paint and the trim, it's pretty much the same razor. So it's kind of cool. Even back then they were doing that. So anyhow, so that was the razor. It has a silver blue blade in it, a Gillette silver blue blade in it, and it's on its second shave and did a very nice job today. Nice job. Didn't have any problems. Although I did touch up my cheeks with a straight, just because I can get a much smoother shave that way. I mean, even when I do a good 3-pass shave anymore with a double edged or a single edge, it's still not quite as close as what I really want it to be. And so a quick touch-up with, the soaps that I use, and the lather that I get, I never have a situation where, oh my gosh, I can't do a fourth pass or touch-up because I've run out of lather. There's plenty. It makes you wonder, if you were doing multiple pass shaves with goo in a can, how long would that can really, really last? Does make you wonder. Anyhow, the shave of the day went well, and Piment de Vie LPV was some good stuff. Katie's Bubbles it's got a great soap. It really does, and he's always good with his scents. Got another one that I really like, and that's the Golden Garden, and it's got gardenias and other stuff in it, and just I love that smell. Anyhow, so that's that, and finished off with some Clubman Special Reserve, and I don't know if I like the Clubman Special Reserve. It's I've had it for a long time, but it doesn't get a whole lot of use. It's not one of those that I reach for on a consistent basis. I'll reach for the Clubman Pinot, the regular stuff, if you will, a lot faster and a lot more often than I do the Special Reserve. But we thought, I thought I'd go ahead and give it a try and, see what happens. What could possibly go wrong? It's not like I'm playing with gasoline or fire here. Okay, so this is a test to see if this thing works. And if it will work well with my new pouch. I got a pouch for it, and just to kind of, so I could wear this thing if I wanted to, put it on a belt, wear it around, and be able to talk on it and protect it at the same time. So I've kind of taken my my mobile studio, if you will, and, taken it portable, as it were. Just kind of a thing that, if I have something that I want to talk about or do something, I can do that kind of on the go now, and not have to worry too much about things breaking or things getting into trouble. I've just realized this. I'm not real happy with Apple products. The little silicone things for their earbuds. And they work nice, and I like their earbuds. I really like their earbuds, but the silicone that's on it, if you leave it in the truck, it gets sticky, and that's just nasty. I'm sorry. Somebody just didn't do the right job there. And so anyhow, that's kind of the way it goes. I'm down in a different location today. I had to take the youngest boy down here to do something, and I've been bebopping around while he's been doing his thing, and all in all, it's good, and just having fun. So I got my little case here and got it down at an Army-Navy store, and just kind of enjoy it. And so I think it'll work well for me. It's not too bad. It'll also hold my radios, which is nice, my little handhelds. It'll hold those, so that's a bonus feature. I can hold a handheld on a belt and just slide it in and out of the pouch, and that'll be kind of nice. It seems to be reasonably made and protected. Granted, it's a cheap thing. It's only like $13, but that's okay for what I'm using it for. I think it'll work just great. Okay, so we're out here on the screen porch roasting some coffee, and I figured I'd talk about the shave of the day. And the shave of the day this morning. Well, actually, it wasn't this morning. It was kind of a shave of the evening, as it were. Had some stuff that I had to do really, really early this morning and just, didn't get out in time. Now, the shave of the day today was kind of a continuation of the shave of the day yesterday. So I need to tell you about a special, gift that someone sent me. And that someone was Joel. And Joel's down in Texas, and Joe's a listener, and he found the podcast, and he has, a collection of stuff, of odds and ends, as he put it, and he sent me a bunch of odds and ends. And one of the odds and ends that he sent me was an old L&A Razor Company from 1965 or thereabouts, and it is a chic stainless steel Shavette designed for injector blades. And I'll throw pictures up on the blog and anything. This thing is in pristine condition, absolutely pristine condition. Now, as you may or may not know, I have a long-standing, I don't know, kind of a bad experience, if you will, with Shavettes. But an injector blade is, well, just a little bit different, because the corners of an injector blade aren't sharpened. So I thought, well, okay, this may be the solution to all my Shavette issues. You know, at one time I have actually stated that I was convinced that a Shavette was in fact the ex-wife's lawyer looking to get the absolute last drop of blood out of, well, anybody that came close. It's just kind of a lawyer joke, but yeah, kind of like that. I've never had a good experience with Shavettes. Now, this thing came with instructions. It came with you know, it even has the original 5-year unconditional guarantee. And apparently it's not stainless, chrome-plated brass. But still, I mean, it's beautiful. And it's got a great heft to it. And just really, really, you know, I looked at that and went, oh, this is the answer. So, yesterday, being, you know, the start of football season, the start of high school football, one of the traditions that I have before I go out on date night with my wife to the high school football game is to, well, shave. And so I did. And I used the Shavette. Now, a couple of things. First off, when I got it, it had a blade in it. Okay, not a big deal, because it is, you know, the equivalent of a straight razor after all. And so having a blade in that, you know, when you open one of these things up, or when you open a straight razor up, for example, you do so with, well, a little bit more respect, I think is the best way to put it, than what you would probably do if you were to just grab a double-edged or a single-edged razor off of a shelf at an antiques shop or off of a table at a flea market. You know, one you expect to be sharp. The other one you should anticipate to be sharp, but unfortunately we rarely do. So I lathered up yesterday, and can't even remember for the life of me which shaving cream I used to create the lather, and that's because the shave itself was, well, an experience. First off, the injector blade itself, there was actually 2 blades in it. And so I was concerned, because it had been sitting in that condition for a while. I was concerned that perhaps the little, I don't know, spring steel or steel pieces that hold the blades in would have been spread enough that a single blade wouldn't sit correctly, solidly in place. But I didn't have any problem. I was able to put a single blade in it, and no big deal. Works well. Okay? So, the shave. Now, I start out, and the shave was just in the, you know, it was a one-pass shave. I'll tell you why in a minute. And it was just in the downward direction. Now, I have been using straights for, I don't know, some time. And perhaps it is the condition of my straights or the length of them or whatever. But what I found is that putting absolutely any pressure at all in this on this thing, and you will get scratched, scraped, and cut. Now, essentially, I walked out of the house going to a date night football game with my wife, with the right cheek on my face looking like I'd been in a fight with a wildcat. Yeah, it was pretty bad. Scratches and scrapes and just, it was rough. But there you go. I mean, that's one of the things, you know. If you don't try, you don't learn. So, by God, we're going to go out there and at least give her a shot. So today, one of the things that I thought about was, I don't know, maybe I was rushed, maybe I just didn't understand, because I did my other cheek just fine. Now, I didn't do my neck because at that time I was just absolutely terrified of the thing. I looked at it as a magical device for extracting blood, and didn't want to have anything to do with it, didn't want to touch it. But then upon reflection, and just because I'm kind of ornery that way, this morning, well, actually it wasn't this morning because I didn't get back until really about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. This afternoon, when I proceeded to shave for the day, I whipped out said L&A Razor Company Shavette made for Schick injector blades with the once used injector blade in it, lathered up, and proceeded to shave. Now, I did so with, trepidation. To put it mildly, was I absolutely terrified? No. Was I a tad nervous? Yes. You got to understand, my face on the right side, the cheek looked like someone, now granted the cuts had healed up a little bit, but it still looked like somebody had slapped me with a red marker a couple of times, and so I was a little nervous going over those areas, but nonetheless, we proceeded on. And in doing so, we used no pressure, or at least absolute minimal pressure, and was able to achieve a very nice shave. In fact, so against the grain was good, very smooth. Again, absolutely no pressure used, just because. And against the grain, for the second pass was also doable and provided very, very nice results. Now, the one thing that I did, again with trepidation, is I did the neck and chin area. Okay, I caught myself, I must admit, one time on the side of my neck, again on my right side, and it just a slight nick. It wasn't too awful bad, just very, very slight. But that was the only bloodletting that occurred. So I have concluded at this point that I may have conquered my Shavette demon, and like they have said in the past, darn the Shavettes, full speed ahead. And so I will take pictures of this absolute beautiful chrome-plated, wonder of Shavette history, and it is very, very nice. Like I said, it's very pretty. It's got some good heft to it. The hinge pin is very nicely done on it. It's got a very nice tight hinge. Realistically, it's a very simple design. The handle is just a piece of brass that's been chrome plated and folded in the middle to simulate the scales. The handle itself has a very nice striations on it, so that you have a good thumb hold, so you have very good control of the razor. All in all, it's really a nice deal, and I must admit, even though it is a very, very small cutting area compared to a straight razor, it is very nice. It's as long as your light touches and don't want to take huge swaths with the thing, it is a very suitable razor. And I am so absolutely happy and honored to have it, and I have to thank Joel for sending it to me, because quite honestly, from my past experience with Shavettes, I had, for the most part, sworn them off, and at this point, I am after having used this, now I must admit, I did use it, and I did go back over with the Alum block. And the Alum block, someone once said that the Alum reveals all. And in this case, what it revealed was that I had some razor burn just about everywhere. Not too terribly bad, but I did in fact have some razor burn just about everywhere. So kind of slathered up with the old aluminum block and rinsed it off, and then proceeded to throw some aftershave on. And all in all, Joel, I thank you very much for sending that to me. It is an absolute treat. And there are other things that Joel sent me that I will be talking about in the weeks to come. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's a fairly simple design, and you kind of wonder, why doesn't anybody else do this? And you realize that, again, everybody is relying on the very long feather blades for shavettes and things like that, and they've pretty much overlooked the injectors. And again, the Kickstarter campaign, I think, has proven that for the injector razor, the new injector razor, that people are, in fact, desirous of something new in the injector range, and so having this as an option is really, really good. Now, the other thing that it makes me think about is that I have found, for example, that the shaving with an injector, for example, and or a double-edged razor, gives me a pretty close shave, but for the real closeness that I want, I found that I enjoy cleaning up with a straight razor. This little gem may become my travel straight razor option. Just because it would do a fine job. It would, if I travel with an injector, then I have a similar blade configuration, and I may do that. And in fact, I may have to go back and look at my other shavettes. Wow, that's a revelation I didn't think I'd come to in this little conversation. But there you go. Anyhow, Joel, can't thank you enough. It has been an enlightening experience, more so than, well, even I imagined. Okay, we are out in traffic and trying to make the best of it. And the sun is right at that perfect angle where it is right in your eyes, which is just, it makes the morning so much fun. Even with sunglasses, it's like, oh my gosh, it's almost painful. But that's okay, because it is a beautiful day, and we are living it, and that's a good thing. So let's talk about the shave of the day. Okay, so, let's talk about the shave of yesterday, too. All right, so the other day I was talking about the old Shavette, the L&E Shavette that uses the Schick injector blade, and how I was, rather impressed with it. And so I used it again on Sunday, and it proceeded to rip the other side of my face all up. Oh, goodness. It was a good plan. What I did is a 3-pass or 2-pass shave, and then where I had been in the past using a straight razor to kind of clean up, I decided to try to use, the Shavette. And it's funny, it worked okay in one direction, or on one side, and not on the other. And the only thing that I can think of is that, and this is just a slight observation. Okay, so with a straight razor, the blade length is long enough that I don't have to pay quite as much attention to the slight, mild, hollow areas on my cheeks, or on my face in general. Because the width of the blade will allow the blade to ride over without digging in. On the other hand, the Shavette, with whatever blade, is thin enough and small enough that it doesn't ride over those areas. And what I run into is it digs into those hollow areas. So it is purely, at least I believe at this point, it is purely a technique issue. It's kind of like, if you have a tool, you need to know how to use it. And that goes with any razor. And so the tool of the Shavette, I am learning. And it is driving me nuts, but I am learning nonetheless. So we'll continue to piddle fart around as my face, heals up. It's like, gee whiz, just when you get one side to the point where there's not scabs on it, you slash and burn on the other side. It's like, oh, come on. If I keep this up, oh goodness, it is just fun. Anyhow, so after all was said and done, a thorough coating of aluminum got rid of most of the issues except for, two that were, bleeders, and we administered to those and, kept on going. But, it was like that. So that was Sunday, and Sunday was also a lavender day. I used some Cat A, had some brand new French milled lavender soap in the shower. It was just a lavender day. But, anyhow, lavender calming for bloodletting. Yeah. So today's shave of the day, I went back to the tried and true Gillette Flair Tip with the Gillette Silver Blue in it, and gently shaved, and did a 3-pass shave. Did a great job. Used Spike just because I needed something that was a little gentler on my face. Now, another thing that Joel had sent me was he had sent me some bottles of Avon aftershaves. And these are vintage Avon bottles, but they are slapped full with aftershave. One was spicy, one's wild country, and I think the other one was tribute. And, he had written to me in a letter that he thought that the smell, that the perfume, if you will, of an aftershave would diminish over time. Let me tell you, no, it doesn't. At least not in those bottles. They were well sealed and no issues. And yeah, it's very, very nice, very pleasant. It's using wild country today. And so again, Joel, thank you. Spicy was good. Spicy was very similar to Old Spice. It's kind of an Old Spice tribute, if you will. Not quite Old Spice, but pretty darn close, and good staying power. That was the thing that impressed me. I've used the generic, if you will, Old Spices. The ones that you get from CVS, and I can't remember who the manufacturer is. I did a podcast episode on it once, or a segment on it once, and I looked all that stuff up, and I can't remember off the top of my head. But anyhow, the Avon Spicy is it's really got a good bit of staying power. Very, very nice. Would go very well with the Old Spice type shaving soaps and creams that we have nowadays. Let's see. I'm thinking Spice Trade with Wickham's, but they don't make that anymore. But there's also Windjammer from there are other companies that make Old Spice smelling type soaps. So it would go very, very well and very nicely with one of those. Now I can't even remember what I'm wearing. Golly, that's bad. Wild Country. I'm trying to remember what Old Country smells like here, or at least get a way to describe it, audibly. It's I don't know, difficult. But it is a very nice smell. So if you happen to go to antique stores or know somebody that collects old Avon bottles, that was one of the things that I wrote back to Joel. I had a great aunt, and she was an Avon dealer. And one of the things that she used to do is she used to collect every single one of the decanters, of the old Avon decanters for aftershaves and perfumes and stuff. And I mean, these things were everywhere. They were on shelves, they were in bookcases, they were in display cases. These things were everywhere. I mean, her whole house was filled with it. It used to drive my great uncle crazy. At least it seemed to me. He'd sit there and he just kind of, you could almost see him just shaking his head. And it was interesting growing up and just kind of remembering that, because as a young kid, that was the impression that I had, is that she collected all these things and he just tolerated it. Yeah. Kind of like my wife does to me. I've got all this shaving stuff and she tolerates it. It is humorous. It is interesting what we do and what we get into and how we go about it. So, it was just kind of fun. But it was good because I hadn't thought about that in a while. And so, having those in my hand and, having those memories is always a good thing. It's not just the smell sometimes that brings back those memories. So, anyhow, the wild country today, and after some spike, and seemed to work real nicely, and all is good with the world, and we're out and doing it. So, all in all, hopefully everybody else will have just as good a day. So, my oldest son is up in college right now, and he's living the dorm life. It's not too bad. He's living in a I don't know, kind of like a dorm / apartment with 3 other guys, and he was. We donated one of our old chairs to the cause because they didn't have any furniture. Well, I can't say they didn't have any furniture. The last time I'd mentioned this, I had said, well, gee whiz, he's got a mess kit. He's got a pack. It's okay, So, I go up there and, we donate one of the old chairs, and it was a chair my wife wanted to get rid of anyhow. So it all worked out well. And, we are wanting to, my wife is wanting desperately to, redo the living room. So, okay. That's just one step in that direction, so all right, And so anyhow, we carry the chair up there, and when I had dropped him off last time, I had given him I guess it's a Coleman camping chair, just a folding camping chair. And he had kind of poo-pooed the idea at first, and there it is, prominently in the living room. And so they're using it and having a good time, and they got a couple other chairs, a couple desk chairs, and they're using a box from a microwave for a table. And I'm thinking to myself, man, this is perfect. This is exactly what college is supposed to be. I mean, this is just what it's supposed to be like. So it's good that they're having the adventure. But my oldest son told me that his fellow roommates were kind of oohing and eyeing over the classic shave equipment that he was using. The old double-edged, he's got a super speed and 1940s super speed. So they were, along with the brush and the soap and everything else. So I thought that was kind of neat, and he did make mention of it, which means that somebody had to have said something about it, but I thought that was neat. So who knows? Maybe if I work the angle just right, I can get 2 or 3 more wet shavers into the fold here, and we'll see what happens. But there is hope for the future, because there are young men out there that are looking at this stuff and going, maybe that's the way to go. So I have noticed today, as I am driving around, that there is a haze on the inside of my windshield. And unfortunately, being the time of year it is and the time of day it is, this haze is just at the right position so that if I turn at certain angles, the sun hits it and I can't see a thing. It's kind of like looking in your shaving mirror and finally deciding to clean it up, and when you do, you look at it and go, whoa, who's that? Wait a minute, who are you? Where'd those wrinkles come from? So anyhow, let's talk about the shave of the day. Today, the shave of the day is kind of a retros 50 style shave of the day. Just have a lot of 1950s stuff that I've used and am currently using today. So I don't know. This segment I may go off on a lot of tangents. Not that I would ever do that, but anyhow, to start off, I started off with some Eton College, which was some nice soap and nice smelling soap, and had it around for a while, so I figured I'd use it. But the important thing is that I used it with my new Samog SOC or Samog Owners Club brush. Now, I've always wanted one of these Samog Owners Club or SOC brushes. I have seen them on many, many occasions. They've got a very nice cherry handle and you know, they look, well, just a little different. But whenever you look at a picture on a website or something like that, it's very difficult for you to get a sense of, well, size. You know, people put them next to razors and things like that, but it just doesn't click. It just doesn't register. And so I had been kind of, I don't know, wanting one of these things for a long, long time. And I happened to find one. In fact, it happened to be just absolutely perfect. I was doing the podcast editing last week and just happened to cruise over to Facebook, and boom, there it was, where a guy offered it up for sale, and I was, in absolute amazement and thinking, oh my gosh, am I lucky here, and jumped all over it, and so I received it. It is huge. Now, I say huge, in comparison to my 1305, or, an 830, or even some of my more standard size brushes, my Badger brushes and stuff. It's a large brush. It is bigger in diameter than my 1305 Samog, and the loft is more. It's taller. Now, I'm not going to say it's half again as much, but it is enough that when you look at it, you notice very quickly that it is a large brush, or a larger brush. And while I have gotten used to the lathering and the soap quantities and everything of my 1305, having something that is this, much larger is, by comparison, rather a treat, intriguing, and just luxurious all at the same time. Well, and a tad overwhelming, because when you splay it, it kind of puts, lather everywhere. So the first time I use it, I'm lathering up like I normally would. Next thing I know, I've got lather in my ear, lather in my nose. Yeah, it's kind of like that. But anyhow, great brush. Holy cow, great brush. So I look forward to many, many years of service out of that thing, and that may become my new favorite instead of my 1305. I enjoy the handle on this thing too, so that's a great benefit. So, okay, so we've got the lather, we've got the brush, everything's good, and so I'm using my Gillette Flair Tip from 1950s, 1960s era time period with the Gillette silver blue blade in it. Again, another classic combination for a great shave, and the shave was great this morning. It's just, nice and gentle, and no issues, no muss, no fuss, and yeah. So the other thing is I've been playing around with something else that actually a couple things, but I'll talk about one of them now. Something else that Joel out there in Texas sent me, so thank you once again, Joel. He sent me a watch. In particular, he sent me a Timex, and it's not just any Timex. It's a Timex mechanical watch, and it's even a little bit, more than just a mechanical watch because it's an auto wind. Okay, so you've heard, just a regular watch where you have to wind the stem and all of that, and you know about those, I'm sure. Well, an auto wind watch is one that is mechanical and has a rotor on the inside that goes roundy, and while you're moving your wrist and have natural movements of your hand, you automatically wind your watch. So when I got it, I said, "Ooh, this is cool." So I wound it up, and yes, indeed, it worked just fine. And so I went and I wore it yesterday. And what I found was that it was running, well, a little slow, about 15 minutes slow over the course of the day. And so that's something that I can adjust. And so I went and took a look at it, and I wanted to find out the date on the thing. Now, an old Timex like this, on the inside, first off, the stainless steel back is a press fit on the thing, and so you pop the back off, and what you will find is there's a date code that is stamped in ink on the back side of the case. Now, that's stamped. If you ever have one of these things, don't rub it off, don't clean it off, because if you do, you'll never be able to date your watch, because that is the only way to date them. So keep that in mind if you ever play around with one of these things. Now, so the date, when I looked it up, it turns out that the watch is a 1959 auto wind, which is the first year of the auto winds in for Timex, at least as far as I can tell. So that is really, really cool. Now, inside the watch, there is a little lever, and it's inside all mechanical watches. Typically, there is a lever or a screw or something that allows you to adjust the... Well, if you ever listen to a watch, you can hear it go tick, 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 tick. What that is that there is a pawl. It's called an escarpment, and it is swinging back and forth on a gear under spring pressure, and that is what essentially allows your watch to work. As you wind the watch, your spring tension increases. Your spring tension tries to release, and that escarpment, that pawl, prevents it from releasing all at once, and it regulates the how long it takes for that spring to unwind, and how fast all the gears turn inside the watch. Now, there's, like I said, typically a little lever or some type of mechanism that allows you to adjust that escarpment to define, well, how fast or how slow your watch is. So I adjusted this thing yesterday. Like I said, it was running about 15 minutes fast, so I got the U.S. time, the atomic time out there in Boulder, Colorado, on the old smartphone, ustime.gov, I believe it is, and had that as my reference, and proceeded to move the little lever over 2 notches. And those 2 notches seem to do a pretty good job. I checked it again this morning after I had set the watch and got everything as close as I could get it. And so about 12 hours later or so, look at the watch, and it's about a minute slow, which is not too bad. So I'm happy with that. So I may do some further adjustment later, but for right now, well, that's good enough. I'm not going to cry about a minute over a 6-hour period. We'll see how it does, and I may adjust it just a little bit. But for right now, this is good enough. And so I am again wearing the Timex Auto Wind, and thoroughly enjoying it. It's really a nice watch. Now, back in the day, this watch sold for $14.95, and if you go, this was back in 1959. $14.95 back in 1959 was the equivalent of $122 today. So this watch would have cost the equivalent of $122. Not too shabby. That's a reasonably affordable watch. But it is a mechanical watch, and it is not a wind. So all very, very nice features. So that was the watch. Now, okay, so I've got the shave, I've got the watch, so I'm almost there. The next thing that I have to have is the pen. Now, the pen that I've got, and I don't know the era of the pen, but it is a Parker 45. It was also sent to me by Joel, so thank you very much, Joel. Another one of my multitude of hobbies. And it is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful writer. Inked it up, and it's doing a fabulous job. So I've got the Parker 45 in my pocket, the Timex Auto Wind in on the wrist, the shave with the 1960s Flair tip. All is good. Kind of a retro day. It's just one of those things. Well, that concludes this episode of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you have some suggestions or would like a topic covered, drop me an email at brushandsoapandblade@gmail.com or give me a call at 864-372-6234 or contact us on Twitter at BrushnBlade. You can also visit us at our blog, brushandsoapandblade.wordpress.com. As always, we're available on iTunes and Stitcher.